I wasn't going to make you look at that slide for all this time, but let's get started talking about these different coaching situations. I'm going to look to over here this way a little bit because that's where I've got my notes, and I want to make sure that I cover everything I want to cover. Let's talk first about the Mississippi State. Zach Arnett, of course, came in, as we stated earlier, and took over for Coach Leach after his untimely and very sad passing. And he was the DC and was named the interim. And, of course, they won their bowl game, and then they took the interim tag off of him, and he became the head coach. And he instantly started changing things, especially from the offensive point of view. I thought it was a mistake. I don't think what he tried to do offensively was a bad idea. Or, excuse me, I thought it was a bad idea. Not that it was a bad offense, because those of y'all that follow me know I don't believe there's a bad offense or a bad defense. Okay? But what I do believe is that you can have fits. Here was a team that for years was recruited not just for the spread, but for the friggin' spread, the air raid. Okay? And he comes in and wants to go under center a good bit and take a quarterback who'd never been under center. What I've been told about Will Rogers was that from the time he was in middle school, he was an air raid quarterback, which is the reason why he came to Mississippi State to play for the Leach, one of the godfathers of the air raid, the man that actually, I believe, gave it the name, the air raid, when he was an assistant for Coach Mummy. And he installed a stretch, the outside zone, which is a great play. It really is. And, you know, we could do right now, it would take me 5 minutes to explain the stretch to you. 5 minutes. It's that easy. It's not easy to execute. It takes hundreds of reps to get good at it. Go back and look at one of the better teams I ever saw run it was when Manning was at Indy. I mean, they did a great job. But they repped it. I just, stretch is one of those plays like you've heard me say about the jet. You know, you can't date it. You got to marry it. And I'm sure Arnett wanted to marry it and probably did marry it. But it was a rocky marriage to begin with because the kids had to learn this. And you take a bunch of linemen that were recruited to drop back and run inside zone and run counter. And you say, well, they ran jet and all that, and they run some form of outside zone under Leach, but it's different. I'm talking about these stretch when you under center and you're getting, or pistol, and you're getting that thing coming downhill, attacking that butt. Some say inside leg of the tight end, some say outside leg of the tight end. By the way, tight end, something else they didn't have much of at Mississippi State because of the air raid, doesn't require a tight end. And when you attack that butt of that tight end and you're reading those blocks, do I go outside? Do I come inside? Do I get downhill and bend that thing back in the A-gap? You know, because the A-gap is now moved from where it was to out here. And that, you know, and I say we weren't going to talk much X's and O's, but I can't help it. We're going to do that. But I think that was a mistake. It required time. And honestly, I think he didn't know it, obviously, by the decisions he made. So this isn't a Zach Arnett issue. I think the powers that be at Mississippi State pegged him as a placeholder. I got no proof of that. That's just my opinion. They were in a rock and a hard place. He was a popular pick among the fans and among the players. And the players are always going to want somebody, not always, because sometimes there's bad, culture issues with an assistant coach. But players, popular assistants are very common. I'd say 90% of the time. Anytime a head coach leaves, majority of the players are going to side with the top assistant, or one of the coordinators, the popular guy. You saw it happen last year at Auburn. The players wanted Cadillac to get it. But it's up to the adults in the room to make the decision. I mean, we don't let kids choose what they're going to eat for supper. They eat candy every night. And so the adults in the room probably at that point should have bit the bullet. But Zach Arnett, with no head coaching experience, became a head coach in the Southeastern Conference. Okay? And that's a tough row to hoe. And again, that's not on him. And I'm sure if we got on the board and did chalk wars, he would run circles around me. So I'm not judging his coaching ability. I'm just saying I'm not qualified for that job. But I'm just saying I think he was a placeholder. And I think And that's why they went ahead now and pulled the trigger, because it was cheap. The buyout was, what, $4 million or something like that. And it was a cheap move and a low buyout. So now they can go out and try to get someone. All right, who are they going to get? Who's Mississippi State going to get? Who are they going to hire? Monday, this is Tuesday, by the way. Monday, this is Tuesday, the 14th. On Monday, November the 13th, I heard John Sumrall's name floated about. Now, he, of course, is the head coach at Troy University, or people of my age that went to the Harvard of the Wiregrass, Troy State University. And he's done a whale of a job there. Last year, they went 12-2 and won the Fun Belt. And this year, they're like 8-2, 9-2, something like that, and kicking butt again. But I don't know if Sumrall, and this is not me not wanting my beloved alma mater to lose their head coach, but I have heard Mississippi State doesn't want to go defensive-minded coach again. Okay, and it makes sense. And Sumrall, of course, is a defensive-minded coach. He was defensive coordinator, I believe, at Kentucky before taking the job at Troy. And so he's defensive-minded. And their offense is good at Troy, but it's not like they're not known for their offense. And they've done a whale of a job scoring points when they needed to. But that's what I hear. But now Sumrall would be a great hire for anybody. And he may indeed wind up with Mississippi State job if, and I mean this is a big if Dan Mullen wants to stay in broadcasting. I believe Mississippi State. I've talked to some people who say they're in the know, but I think that Mississippi State would hire him back if he wants to come out of his retirement. He's been out of the game now 2 years, out of coaching 2 years. He ain't been out of the game because he stayed involved by being on the broadcast team and still analyzing football. Urban Meyer famously did that as well. And he went out and learned a bunch of things and then came back when he left Florida and then ended up at Ohio State. So Dan Mullen may get that job. I think it's Dan Mullen's job to turn down. That's just what I think. He's an established name. He's already been there. He said, well, he left them. Yeah, and it's not the first time a coach has come back after leaving. You see it happen a lot in the high school ranks. A small school coach goes and takes a job at a big school and finds out the grass isn't always greener on the other side. The grass is always greener over the septic tank, but not on the other side of the fence necessarily. And they come back. And it's happened in college ball too. But I don't see why in the world. He's already ventured out. He's kind of, he went to Florida. That was a dream job for him because he had been the OC down there when they won those national titles with Tebow and when Urban was the head coach. And now he's been there, done that. And so what's up? Is he going to, he come back and be just ride off into the sunset, so to speak, and coach 10, 12, 15 years at Mississippi State and have a nice little retirement? And it comes down to the coaching bug. If we all got bit by it, but some of us get over it. Obviously, I didn't. But is he over it? Did he get over the bug bite, the coaching bug bite, and enjoyed the last 2 years and hanging out with the family and the kids? So I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I know this. I don't know it. I believe this with all my heart, that it's his job to turn down or take. And then, of course, John Sumrall has been mentioned, but I've also heard him say that Mississippi State understands they need to get an offensive-minded coach for several reasons. It energizes the fan base. It motivates the boosters, the money people, and it's good for recruiting. And if you're at a place like Mississippi State, with all due respect to Mississippi State, it's not Alabama and it's not Georgia. But Nick Saban proved he could get quality players there running that old school offense that he ran when he first came there. They're not exactly cutting edge right now with the RPOs and the spread game with Milroe at quarterback, but they're still going to get their kids. Georgia, they're going to get kids. I don't care if Georgia lines up in the 1972 USCI. They're going to get their kids because they're Georgia. Alabama's going to get kids because they're Alabama. Mississippi State's Mississippi State. They've had some good years, but they've got to do something exciting to get the recruits to want to come there and to get the kind of kids they need to compete. And that's why, a lot of coaches that follow me, they say, well, why can't they just run the wing T? Wing T's a great offense. Wishbone's a great offense. I love both of them. I'm an old wing T guy. Even though I'm in the shotgun, I use wing T principles. But let's be honest, guys, this isn't high school football. You say, well, it would work in college. I agree it'll work in college. But it won't work if you don't have dudes, if you don't have kids. And they're not going to come. They're just not going to come. Now, can you win? Yeah, you can win. But they want to compete for championships every now and then. And you got to have dudes to compete for championships. And right now with the portal, the way it is, you may not win on a kid first time around. And let's say a kid goes to Alabama over Mississippi State, gets there and finds out he can't get on the field, or go to Georgia, or go to Texas, or any of the other blue bloods. Okay, they can write checks. And they're not getting on the field, they can come. I say, that guy at Mississippi State did a good, I liked him. And he goes to Mississippi State, and the kid can play. And you can win with those kids. But they're not going to come. A wide receiver is not going to come to you to stalk block on the edge while you're running the ball. They're just not. They want to get their touches. It's just, don't hate, don't hate the mailman. I'm just delivering it. And that's a fact. I spent a year coaching in a private school in high school, and that's the life. We had to run something exciting because it's a private school. Private schools have to recruit. Even though, they just do. And this private school was in the private school league, so everybody in the league was recruiting. You're not going to get the kind of kids you need to win, running flat back wing T. Not anymore. Because even at the high school level, kids want to go where they, they get their shine on. And that's just the way it is. So they're going to need to hire somebody, I believe, that's offensive minded. I think they think that. And that may leave some raw out. I don't know. I hope so. Go Trojans. I love the dude. And he'd win at Mississippi State. And who's to say he couldn't get an offensive coordinator that can light it up? Just because he's defensive minded doesn't mean anything. Heck, Stoops. Bob Stoops was the defensive coordinator. Went to Oklahoma. Who'd he hire? Mike Leach. They lit it up. Heupel playing quarterback. And look what Heupel's doing now. All that came out of that Stoops group. So Stoops was a defensive-minded coach who lit it up. But I digress. Who are some names that are being floated besides Dan Mullen and John Sumrall? Jamie Chadwell at Liberty, who did a great job, of course, we all know at Coastal Carolina, has an exciting offense. Here's the question. What I hear from people that have coached there, I had a buddy that played there a long time ago at Liberty, and the quality of life up there at Liberty is great. Is it about the money? I don't know. That's a question Jamie Chadwell will have to answer. If it's not about the money, if he just wants quality of life and live in a place that shares his morals and his values, he may want to stay there, at Liberty. But that's definitely a name that's being floated and could possibly get there. Another one, the guy at Marshall and Charles Huff, who was on the Mississippi, he was Joe Moorhead's first hire. Charles Huff, who's currently at Marshall, he had a really good year last year, and this year I think they're kind of like that. They're struggling to get bowl eligible, but he'd be a good hire. Young dude. I mean, he was born 2 years after I graduated high school, and like I said, he was so well thought of by Joe Moorhead. When Joe Moorhead left Penn State as the OC to come be the head coach at Mississippi State, his first hire was Charles Huff. And of course, he's at Marshall. And he, of course, has a background. He worked for Saban. He worked for Coach Franklin at Vandy and for Coach Franklin at Penn State. And that's how he got hooked up with Joe Moorhead. But he did work for Coach Saban. So he's got a pretty good pedigree. So those are two good names right there that are coaching D1 football right now. Not Power 5 football, but Mississippi State's probably going to get somebody from a group of five type school. All right. So that's my Mississippi State take. All right, let's look at Texas A&M. Of course, Jimbo Fisher was released, $70-something million buyout. And the name everybody's talking about is Dan Lanning at Oregon. And I don't think that's going to happen. And a lot of other people don't think it's going to happen. Lanning said, I think it was just yesterday, again, this is the 14th. On November 13th, Lanning said he's not leaving. Of course, we know that doesn't mean anything. You know, I'm an Alabama fan too. And I'm always reminded what Saban said when he said, I'm not going to Alabama. It's not that he said it. It's what's in the contract. Oregon got bit when Cristobal left to go home to Miami. So they put it in the contract. It's a $20 million buyout. And he said, well, what does that mean? Okay, that means that whoever hires Lanning away from Oregon has got to pay Oregon $20 million cash on the barrelhead right then. Okay, cash on delivery, COD, baby. If you hire him away from us, you got to, technically he pays it, but in reality, the school he's going to is going to pay it. Okay. And you say, well, Texas A&M, they're just printing money down there in College Station. They got to pay a $76 million, I think that's right, buyout. And it's like a bunch of it is due early within like 30 days, a big chunk of it. And then $20 million buyout for Lanning. Oh, and let's don't forget, okay, Petrino came in. He's got a contract. He's got a multi-year contract. So used to assistants didn't have buyouts. Assistants didn't have long-term contracts. They do now. And so I don't know what the total package would be if they let all of Fisher's assistants go. And the one they're talking about staying is the guy that coaches D-line, Elijah. I can't remember his last name. But he's the top recruiter, and they named him as the interim. And he's going to be a popular choice, and they're not going to hire him. But whoever comes in probably needs to keep him because he's so popular with the kids. And, of course, with the portal, if they don't keep him, kids say, I'm out of here. You're not keeping my dude, I'm out of here. And so I think whoever comes in is going to keep that cat, the interim, just like Hugh Freeze kept Cadillac last year at Auburn, because kids can just walk. And so they're going to do that. But so you're talking well over, I'm thinking $100 million to get rid of a coach. And that's before you even pay the new coach. Just to get a new coach in, you got to pay over $100 million because you got to pay the assistants, whatever's in their contract. And I don't know what that is. You got $76 million to pay Jimbo Fisher. Then you got to pay Oregon $20 million to buy out Lanning's contract. It ain't leaving. And I don't think Lanning feels like he's done. He's in 2 short years, he has turned Oregon into an SEC satellite program. It's out there. He's done exactly at Oregon what Dabo did at Clemson. He had an SEC team. I don't want to hear anything about Dabo not doing well this year because y'all all know why that is. Because Dabo's hard-headed and he won't get in the portal. And so he's in a boxing match with one glove tied behind his back, and he'll get that fixed. But Dabo turned Clemson into an SEC-type program. And Lanning has seen that. Of course, he worked for Kirby and he worked for Saban. And he knows how to do that. And he's kind of, I'm sure he's put his stamp on it too. But Oregon is playing SEC-style football. You say, I watched them play their offense. I don't know if you looked at SEC offenses lately. They're pretty wide open. But they're playing SEC type of defense. And their mindset recruiting is SEC type. And they've got that money, that Nike money going out there pretty good too. So I don't think Lanning's going. It's not that A&M, he wouldn't go to A&M. I just don't think the money is doable, even for people like, the boosters at A&M, all that oil money. I mean, over $100 million before you even talk about the new coach's contract. They got it. I just don't see it happening. And I don't know if Lanning wants to come because maybe he's not done. Now, this is Chip. This is Coach Chip talking. This isn't, I don't have any insider trading information. I think Lanning's waiting for the Alabama job. I do. I think Cristobal was the guy people were excited about a while back. And I think, some of the shine has gone off that. Plus, he's gone home. He's back at the U. I don't know. I think Lanning wants that Bama job in a few years when Saban steps down. That's just my opinion. And I don't think that he'll take the A&M job because then the buyout will be even probably bigger at A&M, or go to A&M and have happened to him what's happened to Jimbo, what happened to Sumlin, what's happened to every coach A&M's had the last several times, going back to Franchione. All right. And let's, hey, talking about going back in time, y'all realize A&M has not won a conference championship since 1998? And it's like the last 25 years they've had one double-digit win season. They hire them to fire them. And Lanning can stay out there at Oregon, and they're about to, go into the Big Ten. And I think he can keep racking up some numbers and keep improving his resume in a couple of 3 years in Tuscaloosa. That's just my opinion. Nobody's told me that, and I freely admit that. All right, who else? Elko at Duke. I don't know what his buyout is. It's a private school, so we only guessing at what he's making. Duke, of course, being a private school. I've read he makes $3.5 million. That's not close to A&M money. He was the DC at A&M, so he's got a connection there, and he's done a great job the last 2 years at Duke. It'd be fun to see what he could do with the resources at A&M and with the recruiting and the NIL package and the kind of kids he could get. Look what he's done with kids at Duke. Not that the kids at Duke are less than. Y'all know. Come on. All right. So it would be interesting to see what Elko could do with that. Another big talk out in the state of Texas is Traylor at UTSA. He is a Texas high school legend, won a bunch of championships in high school level, went to be an assistant coach at the University of Texas, and then parlayed that into being the head coach at UTSA, and he's done a really good job there. And everything I've heard about him, coaches that know him have said he's a great guy and a great coach. And he's won at UTSA. Of course, they don't play the same schedule that Texas A&M plays. They're not in the Southeastern Conference Western Division. But he might be a good hire. But A&M might have to swallow some pride. And I don't mean necessarily the people of A&M, but they might have to swallow a little bit of pride of hiring somebody, from what they would think was a minor league school. I'm not judging UTSA. I'm talking about the way some people look at that. So he didn't come from a real, conference or anything like that. And I don't think that, but I think that's what some people might think, especially the people that are writing the checks. It's me writing a check at Texas A&M. But Traylor would be a good choice, and he has done a good job. He's a great coach. And by the way, they say he is a tremendous recruiter. And, of course, that always comes in handy nowadays. Heck, you ain't got to be a great football coach. If you can hire great assistants and you're a great recruiter, you're going to win. But he's a good football coach that can recruit, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite coaches that's been mentioned at Kansas State, Chris Kleiman. But now the knock against him, they say, is he's not considered a great recruiter. But I tell you what he is. He's a great he can develop talent. He proved that at North Dakota State and in a short time at Kansas State. Again, not getting necessarily the quantity and quality that a place like A&M could get. And not a knock against Kansas State, but not everybody is as football crazy and willing to put their money where their fandom is as the folks in A&M. But like I said, he can develop talent and a great football coach. Kleiman, he's a top notch. I would, if I had a program, he could coach it anytime. And we'll see what happens with him. Another one, of course, it's staying in the state of Kansas, is Lance Leipold. He's done a great job. He won at Kansas, y'all. Now, he won a bunch of national titles at Wisconsin Whitewater, but he's won at Kansas, okay, and had some big wins and hung in there with some teams. He's definitely not getting the kind of kids that A&M gets year in and year out. There's probably guys standing on the sideline at A&M this year that could start at a place like Kansas, and Leipold is one. And so that is that'd be a great hire if they decide to go in that direction. He's got a great track record, and he's won everywhere he's been. Now, this is one that it may be under some people's radar, and he may be signable simply because of where he is. And that's Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. Because they're losing their conference. They're getting left on the West Coast, and the rest of the conference is going to the Big 12 or the Big 10. And he's done a great job, with very little compared to what A&M has. Now, I don't know anything about Smith. I mean, he's way out there on the West Coast. He's never recruited any of my kids, and I don't know anybody that knows him personally. But I'm just about looking at what he's done on the football field, the product that he puts out there. He would be a great hire. And, now he isn't, and I heard somebody say, well, he's an Oregon State grad, leaving his alma mater. But again, no conference to speak of. What is the Pacific Coast Conference, whatever they're going to call it, look like? After the Exodus, they're going to bring Fresno in, Boise, San Jose State to be in there with Washington State, Oregon State, Stanford, and Cal, San Diego State. I mean, it's not going to be a Power 5 conference anymore. Oregon State and those other three that are staying probably can do a lot of winning because they'll have more resources than some of those other schools I mentioned. But do you want to stay and be now a group of whatever? I don't even know how the numbers are going to shake down. Is a group of 6 and not a Power 4? Because you're losing one Power 5. The Pac-12 is going to be gone. So would Jonathan Smith want to still coach in the big time? So that's the kind of stuff I'm looking at, and we're looking at right now as the bloody weekend and maroon blood all over the walls as these two coaches were let go. And it may not be over. I think that there's some people in Arkansas, and I love Sam Pittman, and I don't want anything bad to happen to him, but you can't control what the boosters want. And I think it's going to come down to is what do the powers that be think. Has he lost the locker room? I don't think he has. I think those kids love him. I think he proved that. But that big win was it over Florida a couple of weeks ago, and then turned around and got beat by Auburn. But, they just had a lot of things that were beyond his control that happened with injuries and things like that. But I hope Sam Pittman is good, and so that would be another SEC West team. And maybe these two schools letting their coaches go early, maybe saved Sam Pittman for another year, because now they're going to say, like, well, we're not going to be able to get anybody because they've already, everything's picked over. It's like showing up to the buffet, 30 minutes after everybody's gone. It's like letting the offensive linemen go through first and then the wide receivers get what's left. And Arkansas may say, well, we're going to keep him. And I hope they do, because I love Sam Pittman. Well, that's just what I think about this. And I know I've been on a while, but that's just one page of notes. What do you think? Should they have fired him? Who should they get? Did I leave any names out that you think would be a good choice, a good get? I don't think either one of these schools are going to go the coordinator route. There's just too many head coaches out there that I think are gettable, and they're going to try. And I don't know if they're going to dip into the FCS ranks. I think they're going to stay FBS. And those names that I mentioned, did I leave anybody out? Mississippi State definitely not going to coordinator route. They just did that, and I don't think they're going the defensive-minded coach route either. They just did that. And I think they're going to bring somebody in. And then, of course, A&M, that's just a grab bag, And I haven't anybody say anything about Petrino. Will they promote him to be the head coach? I don't think so. But what do you think? Again, comment down below. Hit me up on the social media stuff. I'm at Chip Siegel on Twitter. Y'all know my email address, siegel.chip@gmail.com. And but it's kind of hard to have a back and forth on email. But what do you think? Is it gone too much? Is the money just taken over, which it already has, and to the point now where it's just win, baby, to quote Al Davis. Well, this is a little different one. Tell me what you think about that, too. I know you don't like the length of it, but you can listen to it in shifts, as I like to say. But tell me what you think about me doing something different besides X's and O's, and still talking football. But I thought I would do this because I've had people ask me what I think. A lot of non-coaching people ask me what I think. And I really don't know anything about except what I read in the papers, as the old saying goes. Hey, until next time, be sure to subscribe, like, and share Football Talk with Coach Chip. And as always, be elite.